Hello, I'm Mr. ALeeT, and welcome back to the ALeeT Podcast. In episode 1, I covered my upbringing and how I rose above it. In episode 2, I covered the stigma behind men's mental health. This week starts something that I have been alluding to for the last 2 episodes, the 4 wellness pillars. In the order that we will be covering them on the podcast, the 4 wellness pillars are physical, mental, social, and spiritual. Whenever one of these pillars crumbles, so do the rest of them. In order to take care of mental, you may need to work on physical. In order to work on spiritual, you may need to work on social. If you're asking how, then you've come to the right podcast, because I will explain. However, I will not be alone. Later in this episode, I will have an interview with Karl Musick, a Master Resiliency Trainer, who essentially teaches these 4 pillars for a living, and his service dog, the Resilient Nyx. First, I want to start with my story. I mentioned in previous episodes that my mental and physical health have taken a toll on me throughout my life. However, that isn't always the case. In 2020, I had knee surgery and was in physical therapy. I had just failed my 3rd PT test inside 48 months, which would normally require an Article 15 and reduction in rank. I don't know if it was my tears or the fact that I went to bat for myself, but I received an LOR and was placed on a control roster, which is still bad, but not as bad as an Article 15. Well, like I said, I was in physical therapy and my unit was on stay-at-home orders. I had misread my physical therapy exercise paperwork. I thought I was supposed to do the exercises every day, not 3 times a week. So that's what I did. I went from 188 pounds down to 172 by the time we went back to work. I dropped down to 162 as I continued to exercise. Did I do anything crazy? No. I did 16-8 fasting, where you can only eat during 8 hours of the day and fast during the other 16. And I worked out and did my exercises every day. Before I knew it, I was having run times faster than I have had in 10 plus years. Why did this work for me then, and why am I overweight now? Well, I had a driving force. I wanted to pass the next test. I wanted to prove to myself that it was just the knee and not the belly. I had made it my mantra. I added it to my spiritual health. The endorphins I got from achieving the next goal added to my mental health. Bragging about it to friends and coworkers added to my social health. Being physically fit took weight off me and added it to each of my pillars. That changed after I continuously improved my performance, but still did not make rank. My mental health declined. I told myself I was not deserving, and that's why the people in the room who have seconds to look over my promotion package did not select me. Then, I was put back on crew after getting a taste of day staff life. My physical and mental health declined. My mantras were all lost. I was unable to converse with those whom I consider friends and family on a regular basis. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, the meds for those, and then the reasoning with myself. But it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, since starting this podcast, my mental health has had an uptick. I don't mind that I don't have many listeners now. This is about reaching that one person who is like, oh damn, I know how he feels. You know what else? I've also been getting on the elliptical again. You have to start where you are. And if you're tired of hearing from me, let's hear it from one of my friends on a previously recorded interview. We are on a journey through the 4 pillars of wellness: mental, physical, social, and spiritual. Of these, physical wellness is the one pillar that I have had issues with off and on over the course of my entire 43 years. Joining me today on the ALeeT Podcast is my friend Karl Musick. Welcome to the podcast, Karl. A little bird told me that you know a couple things about physical wellness. Could you kick things off by sharing your credentials and background?
Thank you for having me, Lee. I have been involved with physical wellness for quite a long time now. It kind of started when I was still in the Air Force and I became a physical training leader. Shortly after that, I decided that I was going to pursue my bachelor's degree in sports and health science with a minor in coaching. And then I also got my master's degree in sports management with a minor in collegiate administration. And so over the years, I've helped friends with everything from nutrition plans to how to develop a workout program. And the thing that is always most important to me is the needs and the wants of the person involved. And I feel like most people who are in the physical wellness industry and maybe some of the other closely associated industries, they kind of have like a cookie cutter plan and it doesn't fit for everyone. And so I'm grateful when I get the opportunity to help someone find ways that and resources to be successful at achieving their goals.
That's awesome. That's exactly why I have you on the podcast. That master's degree just sitting right there on your desk, of course, that was the little bird that told me.
Funny enough, I should let you know that when my bachelor's degree showed up, we put it in a really fancy frame, and it looked really nice. And then when my master's degree showed up, it came in this cylinder container, and I took it out and I took a photo of it, and then I put it back in the cylinder packing container, and it's been in there for the last 5 years. And so
Oh,
uh,
wow.
it's funny how important that piece of paper is for you when you're on the journey, and then
Mhm.
when you accomplish it, that piece of paper feels so much less significant. And so, sorry for interrupting you, but
No,
I wanted to share that little tidbit because I just thought it was funny.
that is so true. That's a good little note to add in there. So, some questions for you. Where should someone begin if they're new to the idea of physical wellness?
Honestly, for me, I think it kind of comes back to what's your individual personal goal. Uh, with my military experience, I really feel like oftentimes everyone gets told what does fit look like, and I don't think that what does fit look like fits everyone. Um,
Right.
I think we all have things that we are passionate about and things that are important to us. And so, to me, the most important thing is that you pursue the ability to be as good as you can or that you would like to be at the things that are important to you. And so, over the years, helping people in the Air Force and now the Space Force, oftentimes these people are driven by a bunch of exterior motivations. And maybe it's, what do people think about me because of the way that I look? What are the repercussions if I don't achieve a certain thing? And then, especially if you have strong career aspirations within the military, uh, achieving an excellent score can be really critically important. And the test itself is within the confines of the sports and health science community, is like almost exactly what you would build to test someone's muscular strength and endurance and then your cardiovascular endurance. But the problem is that I've worked with people who were in excellent condition and maybe their waist was a little big because they were tall. Some people's frames carry a little extra weight. One of my favorite papers that I wrote during my master's program was, kind of like analyzing the value of BMI. And I continually went back to the fact that some of the most fit people in the world have BMIs that are obese or morbidly obese on the scale. And
Mhm.
even when I was in my best shape of my life, I was sitting at like a 31 BMI, even though I had a 26-inch waist and I weighed 195, 199 as someone who's 5'9". BMI can definitely have applications, but it's frustrating when we build these confines and then we tell someone that they are or aren't good enough because they don't fit a cookie cutter.
Case in point, I had a We had a staff sergeant when I was at my first unit. He consistently was considered obese, but he was a power lifter.
Great.
So like he had like big abs and
Yeah.
like all the muscles and everything. And for whatever reason, his BMI, I mean, for that reason, his BMI
Yeah.
was a little off. So leadership made him cut weight
Yeah.
so that he could pass. So
Yeah. I had a buddy at 3 assignments ago. He would only eat chicken and broccoli for like the 60 days before his PT test
wow.
so that he could slim his waist. And then when he ran, he wore a garbage bag because it was the only way that he could get his waist to a passing measurement. And it kind of brings me back to some of the horror stories that I've read about some people in some sports industries where weight is really critically important. So you think about things maybe like MMA or boxing or weightlifting, and you compete within your weight class, and so sometimes people make a short-term risky decision, and it could really have really negative impacts on you and your body, not just physically, but carrying over to the mental for the rest of your life. And so it's really important to me that when I help someone, I really make this thing as individualized as possible.
That is great. And that actually leads into some of my other questions. So the second question, what are some pitfalls to avoid? Things like crash diets, overtraining, or social media nonsense.
So when I think about things like, faddish sorts of trends, so either like a diet or training or, a new social media thing that's gone viral, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I often wonder that the person probably had like super good intent at the
Mm-hmm.
start, right? They tried this thing, it was successful for them. All their friends applauded them for their really great achievement and what they were able to do. And then they're like, you have to share this with other people. You have to share. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
is that I really think this comes back to every situation, every person needs to be treated individually. And if you try a new diet or if you try a workout plan, just because that thing didn't work for you, I don't believe that makes you a failure. And I think people let guilt and embarrassment and shame kind of creep into their heads, and then that temporary or maybe even prolonged mental health dip can have a really significant impact on your physical health. And so when we wake up in the morning and our mind doesn't feel right, and I feel like, hey, today's going to be like a real challenge, my motivation or my drive to go do something physical gets substantially curbed because of
Mm-hmm.
that mental health dip. And so I don't believe that it's necessarily a bad thing to go and try a new thing. I think that doing and trying new things is really important for your mental health. You build new connections in your brain, and you get more excited about trying new things, and you get more creative in the way that you pursue and accomplish problems. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to try, but
Mm-hmm.
just know that all of those things weren't designed for you. They were designed for someone else. And so, there's some very exact and straight science on, how do we take care of our bodies. But then you've got to tweak those things to fit your individual need.
Exactly. So how can someone maintain physical wellness once they've started building momentum?
This one to me kind of comes back to grace. It's so easy for you to have really good gains if you're like trying to build strength, have like a nice weight loss at the start if that's what your goal is, but then to plateau, or maybe our weight is really finicky, like maybe you didn't sleep great yesterday, or you didn't have enough water, or hey, how what's the best way to take care of yourself? But when we plateau or we have like a setback, have grace with yourself and just, hey, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I'm responsible for this thing. Maybe my water weight's just up today because I drank 120 ounces of water yesterday instead of 80 like I did a couple days ago. And so now, or maybe I haven't had a bowel movement. There's all sorts of things that can contribute to
Exactly. Yeah.
what is and isn't um, in line with the goal that you've set. And so to me, I think grace is probably like really the most important thing is be kind to yourself. I think we're oftentimes our own worst critics, especially if we get stuck in our own heads.
Yeah, exactly. I've had issues like that before where I'll start working out for a couple of weeks and then I see no progress. I see like an increase in the number on the scale instead of a decrease. And it's just like you said a second ago, it could have been I drink more water the day before, or I haven't had that bowel movement, or
You you made a
whatever.
healthy decision, and appropriately, the result was the opposite of what you had
Yes.
expected or hoped for. And so, it doesn't even have to be like a shameful or embarrassing thing. You could have done
Mhm.
the right thing and drank too much. There's a point where you can have too much water, but
Yeah.
maybe you just had more water because your body demanded it. Maybe you worked harder, or maybe it's hotter outside, or maybe it's humid,
Yep.
or there's a hundred variables that could have contributed to that situation and why you weigh a little bit less or a little bit more today than what you were hoping for. And so,
Right.
yeah.
All right. I appreciate that answer. So do you have recommendations for programs tailored to different fitness levels? So like beginner, intermediate, advanced?
Yeah, this one is very straightforward to me. I think oftentimes we get into a gym environment, or maybe you're working out with someone to hold you accountable, and we want to do what they're doing, but our situation isn't the same. So maybe they've been in the gym for years, and we're just getting back into the gym. Well, it's really unreasonable to have similar expectations of yourself starting back in to someone who's been doing this thing, even if maybe they've only been doing it for 30 days and they want you there so that they have someone to hold them accountable. And when it comes to goal accomplishment, I think one of the most important and critical things you can do is to communicate your goals to someone who will hold you accountable. I think
Yes.
oftentimes we share our goals with the people around us, but we share them with the people who maybe they're really cheering for you, and then they're not going to give you a clear and transparent picture of what you're actually accomplishing right now. Or you might share your goals with someone who doesn't actually want you to succeed. And that second person is probably a lot more dangerous, I think. But the thing is that I remember the studies from several years ago where they talked about it was something like 87% more likely to accomplish a goal if you shared it with someone who would hold you accountable to that goal. So I tell people all the time, please, I don't know if this is like a high school coach, a parent, your supervisor, your spouse, whoever that person is who will hold you accountable to achieving your goals. You're way more likely to be successful at accomplishing that goal if you communicate that. So, uh, to get back to like recommendations for programs tailored, I don't think that there's any silver bullet that's good or best for everyone. Um,
Right.
Honestly, you probably have someone who knows quite a bit about physical fitness around you, and oftentimes these people are very passionate about it. And if you ask them questions, they will share your information with you. I just would recommend that whatever you hear, that you go validate it or verify it somewhere. The National Health Science website, it's a .gov, they have tens and tens and tens of thousands of peer-reviewed scientific articles, and you can just plop a couple words in there that you've recently heard, and go find the science to back whatever you've recently heard. I mean, it's really easy to get enamored or distracted by something that you've seen on social media, and then want to have that same success or want to have that same accomplishment yourself. So I generally encourage people to, hey, bring some information to me. If you're someone that I've served with, if you're a friend, if you're family, I'll do my best to connect you to a resource. But if you and I aren't friends, or if you don't know me, then ask that question. Do a Google search. If it's a sponsored ad, I don't know if I trust that someone paid to get that information in front of your
Yep.
face. I highly recommend you go to like a National Health Science Association or .gov link, and there's all sorts of really wonderful peer-reviewed articles where people who are qualified within their field produce information, and then it gets reviewed by others. And I've been able to help dozens, if not hundreds, of people over the last 15 years since I've kind of become a physical training leader and then pursued my degrees.
So you said a ton in there that I'm like, check, check, check. So having somebody hold you accountable, I that's one of my top things. Just that, it like communicating whatever your want is, what drives you, who are you as a person, and communicating that to somebody that will help you achieve that goal is key. The second thing was we asked earlier about social media nonsense, and you just brought it back to scientific evidence. And as a science major, I just love that. So you're talking about peer reviews, on point. All
Wonderful.
right. So, last question here. How does physical wellness support mental and emotional health? I know you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but can you bring it home for us?
Absolutely. Uh, this one for me, I think, is pretty simple, and it's as I transition out of the military into my next job, working as a Master Resilience Trainer, I'm going to be developing content about resilience. There's within the Department of the Air Force, Fortify the Force initiative. There's a resilience course that is taught, and I've been qualified on it now for several years. And so when I'm teaching people who are brand new to the military, oftentimes they've only been in for 2 to 6 months. How does physical wellness support your mental health? There's a strong bond between your physical and mental health. And I think I spoke a little bit earlier about when I wake up in the morning and mentally I feel like I'm a little off today, how it's more challenging for me to have the energy to go and accomplish a physical goal. I've been coaching sports now. I'm getting ready to start my 4th year coaching football. And when an athlete sustains a physical injury and they're coming off the field, and I know it's a concussion and they know it's a concussion, and I'm like, please let me see your eyes. As soon as they lift their face to me and I can see they're all welled up and there's tears flowing down their face, and I see either pinpricks or gigantic dinner plate pupils, and I know that they've got a concussion. And so I run them through the protocol to understand the severity of this TBI potentially, right, or this concussion, and then so that way I can give them advice. And then I always come and chat with the parents and say, hey, we've got to shut your son or daughter down. They shouldn't return to the field. We will not allow them on the field until they get released by a doctor, because a continual recurrence of brain injuries will could lead to more severe, prolonged or chronic symptoms and or side effects if you don't take care of yourself. But what's crazy is, and to really hammer home this question, they know physically that they have an injury, and they just look broken in that moment because they know I can't finish this game today. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I'm coaching the following week, say the injury occurs on Friday during game night, we come around on Monday, Tuesday. I always check in with them multiple times, because when you have a passion or love for something, it doesn't matter if it's sport or science or art or whatever it is. If something limits your ability to do that thing and to do it to the level that you know that you're capable of, that's really challenging, and can influence your ability to be mentally strong through those things. And so I constantly check in with them. I make sure that they know that there's not like a fault to this, and so that way they don't carry some shame or embarrassment associated with something that they had absolutely no control over. One of the last injuries at the end of the year, we had a concussion, and he just kept apologizing to people, and he got cheap shot. He got
Yeah.
blindsided by a guy who who threw an illegal block at that time, and I just had to continually be in his corner and be supportive and let him know that, I know in sport, you hear all the time, like, keep your head on a swivel, but I mean, you can't see all the things and then accomplish your, be aligned right, do your assignment, and then execute to the best of your ability and see everything, right? And so, there was no shame in this athlete getting injured, and it was really frustrating. I was frustrated for him that he felt like he had to apologize for being injured. And so yeah, that was a really a bond. It let us bond, and then it allowed me to grow quite a bit, I think, as a coach, and like working through that situation.
Mm-hmm. So I can see how you're saying that kind of plays into the emotional health because of how people react when they've put so much into something only for it to be cut short. Like
Yeah.
you were just talking about football players. People go out there and they'll practice move after move after move, and it could be a simple just hop, and there goes their ACL or whatever. So I totally understand that. From a mental standpoint, I think it also goes kind of back to what I was saying earlier, how, you could work out for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden you go and you weigh yourself and you're like, shouldn't this be going down instead of up? And then you start doubting yourself
Right.
and you're like, maybe it's not worth it. Like, but also on the flip side, being physically well, endorphins are like the best drug in the world. Like
Yeah.
that runner's high, it feels like a warm hug from your mom when you get home from a bad day of school. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Um, and then to add a little more about, like, how does your mental and emotional health influence your physical? I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso, but it's one of my favorite shows. I don't often watch TV shows all the way through twice, and I've watched this twice.
Oh
I've been
wow.
trying to encourage my wife to watch it a third time because it's one of my very favorite TV shows of all time. But they won't talk about the yips, right? And
Hmm.
so the yips occurs when you have this like mental block. And so they say that for you to like excel at a thing, you have to do something 10,000 times. And
Hmm.
the yips occurs when you're doing something that should just be second nature, right? And so you're trying to physically work out this thing, but there's just some mental block that's preventing you from doing it the way that you know you can do it. And you've practiced this thing to like a level of excellence that for some reason there's like a block, and you just can't accomplish it right now. I'll always be here for you. Make sure you give the Resilient Nyx some love. And so she's pretty wonderful. It's my service dog, and she's been bringing up the morale of hundreds of service members over the last 3 weeks. And so
Including me today. So
oh, boom. Yeah. I'll give you that air high five. Yeah. 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 Nyx is a pretty wonderful soul, and
mhm.
I'm grateful to have her and then share her with people who are important to me. Excuse me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So on that note, thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up.
Yes, sir. Well, your family.
Thanks again to Karl and the Resilient Nyx for joining us on the podcast this week. Next week, we will have another special guest as we revisit mental health, but this time with a professional spin. And remember, you're not lazy, you're carrying things: pain, pressure, expectations, and still moving. That's strength, that's resilience. And if you need help setting goals coupled with what we talked about in this podcast, with the acronym SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. We will cover goal setting on a future episode, but for now, if this message moved you, please like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast, and follow me on Instagram at _ALeeT_podcast. If you are feeling low or stepped on, I have been in your shoes before. you are not alone. Please feel free to reach out. Let's go on this wellness journey together. And until next time, stay spug and elite.